the SEC. So for the foreseeable future, this is this. So let's just start this off with a simple question, Jamison. What do you think of Bedlam?
Yeah, we've kind of talked about how special it is being an Oklahoman with Bedlam because we understand, Texas is our biggest rival. But what I think about with Bedlam is I think about growing up as a kid on the playground, and you probably have about, 80% OU fans, but you always have those scrappy 20% Oklahoma State fans. And that week that you get back from school after the Bedlam week, just that feeling of either complete demise when like the other team beats you, or you could just rub it in that team's face. In-state rivals is just such a special thing, and it's something I'm going to really miss.
Ty, I'll kick it to you next for this, but I want to say, Jameson, like, we grew up at a very interesting time with Bedlam because we were like almost like too young to really remember 2000.
Mm-hmm.
Like our first year of really getting into OU football and really knowing about OU football was 2001 when OSU won that absolute upset. And then 2002, they won back to back. So it was a pretty torturous time as an OU fan with Bedlam to start out because we didn't have this high. We weren't riding high off the title because we don't remember it because we're 5-4, like age wise. And you're getting into the sport and all these OSU fans think they're hot shit. So that was a little tough time, a little bit of a tough time.
Yeah, and I feel like you don't really get like a strong opinion of your team until you're like in second grade when you're like 7 or 8 years old. So we are a little bit shielded from that, but still, not the best start of our childhood, but it's something I'm surely going to miss. Even the losses, the school days after the losses, I'll miss feelings like that.
As a kid, I remember being traumatized by the Stoops We Did It Again shirts. As heartbroken. As a fan of both Britney Spears and the OU Sooners, devastated, absolutely devastated. Ty, what when you think of Bedlam, what do you think of?
Yeah, I didn't have that same experience necessarily growing up. Just being outside of Oklahoma. But I think that when I think about Bedlam, I think about just in-person stuff, even just I think comparative to what a lot of people have been, just the handful of times I've been to the game in Stillwater. I just think of that great Oklahoma fall when it's at the right time of year, and then just how it's such a magical game. I've been a big proponent of Bedlam should just be played only in Stillwater, because it's so much better there, not trying to slander the OU atmosphere experience. But I think of just the games in Stillwater and the atmosphere, getting there early, getting some Eskimo Joes and everything else. That's what I think of, and that will certainly be missed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Ty, you're 100% right. Bedlam isn't really Bedlam unless it's in Stillwater. And no shade to OU. I love OU, love the game days. But when it's Bedlam doesn't exist in Norman. Oklahoma versus Oklahoma State exists in Norman. It's OU versus OSU. But in Stillwater, it's Bedlam. It's different. It is their OU Texas, their Super Bowl. It is enormous for them. And
that is. I was just going to say that's so beautifully accurate and also just perfectly demeaning to OSU fans. It's perfect.
I mean, it's still true. And the thing is, like, OU fans, yeah, it's our second biggest rival. But just for me, going to an OU game in Norman, yeah, it feels a little bit of a different game than your ordinary conference play. But going to an OU OSU game in Stillwater, I have that same pit in my stomach feeling kind of with the Texas team. Even in the games we are highly favored, and even in the games we weren't, because you're in a hostile environment, and not a lot of OSU fans have any kind of positive things to say about Oklahoma. And obviously, within the recency, Baker Mayfield was one of the most hated people in all of Stillwater, and the things that they did during his time there. And all of the close games we've had there, it has not been a friendly atmosphere or a camaraderie rivalry where you respect both sides. It has been absolutely, people going at each other's throats.
And it's not like that at all in Norman, I feel like. And, I don't think OU fans chirp like that. It's a different vibe. And we've seen some massive games, Bedlam games. And it's just like in Stillwater. It always goes down in Stillwater, it feels like. And it just, it's different. it's special too. And I love OU Texas. Beating Texas, nothing beats that game in Red River. But there's something special about beating Oklahoma State in Stillwater. Just especially when they're hyped. When it's for a Big 12 championship or like something like that's on the line, and they just kind of break a little bit, because they come in with all this optimism, and then it just you see, like, by the end of it, they walk out and they kind of, it's not like they're devastated, because this has happened a lot. This is one of the most lopsided series in college football, where they just kind of go right back to normal. They're just fine. They're like, well, I guess it's wrestling or basketball season. And it's an utter thrill. It's just a joy silencing Boone Pickens. It's the best.
And like the games itself are fun, but also just like the aftermath. Like I will always say with like going into enemy territory, and both of y'all know this as well, like some of the best times with going to away games is not the game beforehand. It's not during it. It's the walk out afterwards, whether you have lost or you have won. Bobby and I, whenever we went to Stillwater last, the walk out, it was the Caleb Williams game, and we had to really calm ourselves because we had a lot of emotion. I had to really talk Bobby down a lot.
Yeah, you did.
But
you did.
And the other side of thing, whenever you come out of enemy territory victorious,
2013,
exactly. That is a game like where you feel on top of the world, and you can kind of chirp a little bit now. And Oklahoma State fans will respond, but obviously you'll have the last laugh.
It's the best. Ty, yours was you went to the 2019 game, right?
Yeah, that was, I think, one of the ones I went to. Yep.
Yeah,
that sounds right. Yep.
Yeah. What's your experience going to the game? Like, what was your favorite moment from a Bedlam game in Stillwater?
I mean, not necessarily unique to Bedlam, but just that game specifically. A friend of ours and I sat right in front of the band, was where our student section tickets were. So we sat by the band director, and we were getting to pick songs at one point, which was fun, and just sort of chatting with the band members and everything else, and that sort of camaraderie, almost like the camaraderie you would feel, I suppose. And this is a bit of hyperbole, but the camaraderie you feel when you're you're on vacation in Florida and you meet someone else that's at the beach and they have an OU flag, or you're in Europe and you meet another American or something like that. You have that sort of, it's different when you're outside of your normal area, and it just has that different atmosphere of like meeting with other people who you have that connection with, not even just with the band specifically, but just that environment, like you talk about, just a really hostile environment where it's a pretty small stadium, not trying to make fun of them, but it is a pretty small stadium. So naturally the allocation for OU fans is also very, very small. So I think of that atmosphere. And then again, just the atmosphere in Stillwater, the hostility, but also the passion that's in it. Like you can just feel it in the air, and it feels different there. And that is, I think, probably my favorite. It's not one specific thing, but when we're talking about going to games in Stillwater, that is certainly my favorite memory.
Yeah. It's an energy that you don't get anywhere else, really. Like you get it in some big games when you go on the road, but like Stillwater, it consistently does it the most. And it's only like that for Bedlam. It's not like, I've been to a couple other games in Stillwater, and it's never that same energy. You don't feel it like you do for a Bedlam game. But
Bobby, let me tell my favorite story of being in Stillwater, because I feel like I've told this many times in the pod, but just obviously this is a perfect time to tell it again. We'll probably talk about this game so much more for the rest of the pod, because it's probably one of our favorite Bedlam memories. It's the 2017 Stillwater. I understand that we had our time in high school whenever we had the miracle win with Blake Bell. That was great.
2013.
But I think 2017, I have this special memory because me and one of my buddies from college, we decided we were going to sit in the student section of Oklahoma State, and it was just us two. And you're like, you know what? I got a buddy. We're totally good. But 2017, that was a hostile year. That was right after, the Baker Mayfield running away from the police. They had every single student in the Oklahoma State section had the mug shot cut out, and they're holding it up like it was some kind of basketball game, but on a large scale. And I had realized before the game even started, I don't think my friend was going to make it much for the game, and I lost him. And I was like, well, I can't go to another seat. I got to sit here and watch. And I watched that game by myself in the Oklahoma State student section. And that was one of the most wild games, back and forth. The just roller coaster, the coming out party of Marquise Brown is no one talks about that as much. Everyone will talk about the Baker Mayfield versus Mason Rudolph. That's where Hollywood really made his name. And absolute wild game. Talk about hostile, being in the student section of Oklahoma State by myself, not knowing anyone else around me, just being that will test your character.
Oh yeah, no, that is a stressful environment to say the least. And I've sat with Oklahoma State people in situations, and we both have, but being in the student section as a student at that time, like, whoo, that had to have been tough. Like you said,
I don't know how I made it out safe, really, to be completely honest with you. It was extremely lucky. I'm guessing I just had nice enough people around me.
Yeah, well, and it was an absolute roller coaster of the game too, because it started with that fumble that got reversed, and it was just that game was a nail grinder. It was not a triumphant OU victory, but like it was an absolute dogfight, a rock fight. But yeah, it was definitely the Hollywood Brown game for sure. He went the hell off, and like in our YouTube chat, 1982, the Gus Johnson, who is this kid from Hollywood Brown? That's just a great moment. And it was kind of Baker Mayfield's Heisman moment too. Just absolutely showing out in his last game, last Bedlam game in Stillwater. Unreal stuff. If I had to go with my favorite moment, it's escaping in 13. Just
close second.
It made no sense. The best Bedlams are when Oklahoma State is better than OU. It's whenever they have everything riding for them, and they're like, "This is different. We're on top. Oklahoma's not that good. This is our chance. Let's do it." And then they fumble the bag. It happens almost every single time. They get to this moment where they have it. They had a Big 12 championship right there, and they let Trevor Knight.
Three different quarterbacks, right?
Trevor Knight, not Casey Thompson.
Kendall.
Kendall Thompson, who got pulled. Trevor Knight got hurt.
One drive. It was just one drive. And I think it was like 0 for 1 or like 0 for 2.
We were so excited to see him come out there too. And then Blake Bell, who somehow miraculously rallies this team down and gets a win. It was unbelievable. And the moment where it's fully over, where Eric Stryker runs out there, and the sequence of events where he almost gets tripped by the male cheerleader and then gets pelted with turkey legs and whatever in front of the student section. The team goes over, talks all that mess. It was senior night. It was cold. That's one of my favorite OU wins ever. Anytime you get the rare opportunity for OU to be an underdog and they figure it out, it's the best. So that's my favorite. Go ahead, Ty. You got it.
I think I didn't get to go to that one, but I think that's my favorite Bedlam game that I can remember in terms of the game, because all the pieces are there. It's in Stillwater, so you have the atmosphere, you have the rare OU's the underdog situation going in there, and then you have the down to the absolute wire, just unlikely heroics to get there and get the win, at least from the OU perspective. Like, you couldn't script a better situation for not situation. You couldn't script a better script for that OU team to come out on the top like that year. So it's super, super cool. Yeah, quarterback by committee. I remember that line, like all the announcers using that line on OU that year. But yeah, it was. I mean, that's probably, I think, my favorite Bedlam game to go back, and if you're going to go back and rewatch one, for sure.
Yeah, because OU had agreed, and OU had no idea who their quarterback was. Meanwhile, Oklahoma State just came off just thrashing a very good Baylor team that was en route to a national championship type of run. And the very next game was OU. OSU had game day. They were on a different level. some little kid behind us was talking about Clint Shelf being a Heisman dark horse, which
That
wasn't
was bogus.
that wasn't real, but it was still hilarious.
The best part is like all the people around him were like, "Wow, you are so smart," and Bobby and I were like, "I'm going to unleash the world of 1,000." Like I was like wanting to like go full Dennis Reynolds on this.
I will unleash the fury of 1,000 suns. It was, oh man, what a game that was. But yeah, let's kind of go through some of these games because we talked about some of our favorite moments. But overall, like I mentioned, very lopsided series. So like before the Big 12 even started, it was 72-12-7. That is ridiculous. OU went 44-3-1 between 1946 and 1994. They in Big 12 play. They're 19-7, so good on OSU for narrowing the gap. And overall, the series stands at 91-19-7. So unprecedented dominance. It's a different level. But I gotta say, like, whenever OSU does get that win, it's like the worst thing ever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's for sure. What about so they beat us? A couple of those wins had to be during their national championship run, right, in the 40s.
Oh, shit. They're Stolen Valor Natty in 1945. Yeah, Bob Frenier, whatever. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Let's pull it up. 1945, they won in Norman, 47-0.
Oh, yeah, that's bad.
That sounds like a national champion to me.
Well, oh Jesus, we're not gonna do this. So yeah, one of those wins was that. But no, they've been infamously snake bitten. Even their best teams, Barry Sanders, never beat OU. I don't think they ever beat Switzer. In fact, actually, I could be wrong on that. But yeah, infamously just not like even when they were at their top, couldn't do it. But let's talk about some of the most impactful games of this series. So let's start out with that too.
Before we start out, they did beat Switzer in 76.
Okay, there you go. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. So let's start this out. So I think the start of what Bedlam really became like an interesting series, because before it was just OU beats them. It wasn't really a thing outside of the state. But I think the moment that changed everything was 2001. And this is, I'm going to say this. This is the worst loss in Oklahoma football history, I think. I think it's the most inexcusable loss in OU history.
That's something.
Well, I'm sorry for just kind of going full ISO ball on this, but let me break it down. Break it down. Here's how bad this loss is. So OSU fans, if you've been suffering through this and you want to hear something that'll like warm your spirits, make you feel better, let me regale you in how insane that 2001 upset was. OSU was 3-7. It was the last game of the year. OU is, let's see, OU's 10-1, ranked third in the BCS. Number one Nebraska had just lost a day before to Colorado. So it knocked out the only team to beat OU out of the Big 12 championship. OU would have just had to play Colorado. OU had the South Division tiebreaker over Texas, who was ranked 6th. So all they had to do was beat 3-7 Oklahoma State in Norman, and then beat Colorado, and they're in the national title against Miami. Oklahoma State 3-7. Their wins: Louisiana Tech, Northwestern State, and Baylor. La Tech, whack team. Northwestern State is in 1AA at the time.
You got
was 0-8.
The directional school plus state school modifier, like just based on statistics of naming, should be one of the worst teams in existence.
Absolutely, just the times multiplier. So this crappy 3-7 team that beat a WAC team, a 1AA team, and a team that didn't win any other games in Big 12. They go into Norman, beats OU 16-13 on a last-minute touchdown to Rashawn Woods. Game completely sparks the Oklahoma State program from there, leading to a mass investment in the program from one T. Boone Pickens, and leads the rise of their head coach, Les Miles, who became a college football coaching power. So not only did you lose a chance at what you were going to lose anyways to Miami, that Miami team wasn't losing to anyone, but you lost a chance at a national title, and then sparked one of your like in-state rivals into becoming a really solid program. That is the worst loss in OU history by far. By far.
Mm-hmm. Nah.
I mean, any time where you have a game where you lose a direct chance at a national championship, that obviously I'm listening to you here, Bobby. I completely agree with that. We've had some embarrassing losses, and that's right up there. Anytime, it's how you say 3 wins.
They were 3-7.
That's just honestly inexcusable. And I'm looking at kind of like the recap of it and seeing the freshman Josh Fields lead them to a victory. I think I'm pretty sure I had some like McDonald's bobblehead back when I was a kid. They did an OU OSU bobblehead, and I had a Josh Fields bobblehead, and I guarantee you it's just because of that game gave him his clout.
Yeah. I swear to God, I remember running into you at that game, actually, like back in the old St. Mary's days. I very, very distinct memory of that. But Ty, what do you think? Bad loss? You shook your head and was like, I don't think so. But in terms of regular season losses,
worst loss in OU history has got to be when we fumbled the national championship to a team who had a tight end at quarterback, the worst coach in NFL history coaching them, and then a guy who did some things. We're not going to say what he did. We're not going to say why he maybe possibly did them, but a guy who did some things and is no longer with us on that team as well. And then also Cam Newton, but didn't play on that team. That would be the worst loss to me in OU history, because there's just no reason we should lose in that situation. But
losing a direct natty sucks. And I should have rephrased worst regular season by far. Because anytime you actually lose a national title or a playoff game, automatically ahead of it. But yeah, bad times. And then amplified the next year in 2002, where Les Miles at OSU two-peat, and once again knocked out a Oklahoma team. They're ranked 3rd, knocked them out of the national title contention, but they wouldn't have gotten in because Miami and Ohio State were undefeated. So that stings a little less, but them winning back-to-back, that sucked. Not fun. They felt like they were in control. 2 straight years of it. And when you're a kid, like, years feel like they're forever. So like 2 years felt like eternity. Jamison, it was awful.
Yeah, but luckily we kind of really got on the right side of things after those games and went on ourselves a little run. I feel like I was trying to like look and say like, what kind of core memory do I have of the from 2003 to whenever, I guess, 2010, and that little run that we had. I remember in Stillwater, the 2006 game with CJ Ayu, and we almost got upset again there. Ended up only winning that game 27-21. We've had some tough, close games with the Pokes, but even during that kind of big stretch of a run.
Oh yeah, it was always a dogfight. Regardless of how OSU was, always a dogfight. It felt, or sometimes it was a blowout, but like, especially in Stillwater, is always a dogfight. 1982 does bring up, after the back-to-back, people forget, Les Miles ended his pregame the whole week before, after being us two years straight. Les Miles goes in, playing number 1 OU, and says, 2 teams are entering. One's the best in the country, and the other is just a good football team. We're gonna figure out which one's which. And then right before kickoff, it's probably Lisa Salters or someone's interviewing him, and he goes, "I ain't got no words to say left. Let her rip." Do you know what the score of that? Do you know what the score of that game was?
No.
Well,
is this the 03 game?
2003.
This is
9-52.
What was that again?
52-9.
52-9. Yeah, they let her rip. 2 years of frustration just completely piled out on Oklahoma State Les. It was the best. It made it a little worth it. 2004 tight. I remember that one. That was another narrow one. Took a crazy Adrian Peterson performance and a missed field goal to get out of that one. 05, another great. Adrian Peterson was great in the series, honestly.
Oh yes.
Every time he went out and just destroyed them. But yeah, no, I think of close games, even in from the Gundy era to the Miles era, always good, always exciting. I will say. Ty, you grew up an OU fan. Yeah. What are some of your thoughts on some of those games?
So I was going to say, yeah, I don't think remember too many of those. I think I think I've said before, 07 really was the first time that I started really paying attention to OU football. So for me, we had just a lot of dominance. Obviously, 08 was a fairly high scoring game, 61-41, but that's still a 20-point margin of victory. I remember being super, super excited in 09 because just anytime you get a shutout, that's exciting, especially as an OU fan. And then especially against a rival like that is super, super fun. But then, 2010 rolls around and you kick off, 2011, I guess maybe a bit of an outlier, but that 2010 to 2014, or really, I guess you could say 2012 to 2014, just that series is, I think, one of the best series in college football. If you were to just watch those games, we'll say 12 to 14. So watch those three in a row, that 12, 13, 14, and just watch that as a 3-game series. It's just tremendous. And we've already talked about, one of those games in there. And then just to jog everyone's memory, because we touched on it, 2012, 51-48 with OU winning in Norman in overtime. And then 2014, obviously, unfortunately, Oklahoma State also winning in overtime, also in Norman again with the infamous punting situation that occurred. So,
yeah, no, that 2012 game was awesome. One of the rare overtime games. Incredible stuff. I do want to touch on 08, the Sam Bradford game. This was interesting.
Des Bryant too.
Yeah, that was a stacked game. A lot of back and forth, and it featured the famous play where Sam Bradford gets flipped over, goes fully vertical. Weirdest thing about that is both OU and Oklahoma State somehow find it to be a cool moment. OU, it makes sense because it was a 15-yard gain. It was our guy really going all the way out and trying to get a touchdown. But OSU, I went to a game the year after and they put it on their pregame hype. Oh, we sure hit that Bradford kid pretty dang good. I'm like, he almost scored a touchdown. This was his Heisman moment.
I might be on OSU's side on this one. I feel like it's been one of the most overrated plays in recent OU history, and I think Ty agrees with me.
No, I do. I remember at the moment, in the time, being upset that we were showing that as a highlight because I was like, they stopped his touchdown. This is an OSU highlight, and I remember, of course, I can't recall now, but I remember thinking why aren't they using 4 or 5 different Sam Bradford highlights to show for his for his Heisman moment because this is just not a good one. It makes me think of what's that clip of Mississippi State, Will Rogers, airport quarterback, getting flipped around by Kansas State. It makes me think of the same thing when your star throwing quarterback is flying through the air, getting smacked over and over by the other team. That's not great.
Exactly. What? Yeah. Why would we celebrate? Obviously, he came up and he was fine, but why would we celebrate? It was a kind of hit where people get hurt. Whenever you fly up in the air and essentially do a cartwheel, the guy could land on his wrist. He could. And he did. He didn't get a touchdown, and legitimately could have impacted the future. I'm glad it did, and really all it is, OU fans celebrate it just because it's a cool picture. That's really what it is. You'll see so many people print out that picture. I understand first down. I understand all of that. But I never thought it was the coolest thing ever whenever I saw that play.
So I'm not saying it's the coolest picture ever. I'm not saying it should have been his Heisman statue. I thought that was too far. I fully agree with that. I think it was too far, but it was absolutely a cool moment. It showed that this guy has the dedication, has the competitive nature to go all out for a touchdown. Risky, yeah. A little dangerous, yeah. It kind of messed with his hand, actually. But it's so cool. It is too cool of a moment. I think it's definitely falls on the OU side. But I see your points, but that's my take on it. Ty, what were you going to say? I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I was going to do a quick aside if we're just already on the topic of cool Oklahoma State highlights. The tipped interception from out of bounds obviously has we got to give that recognition. And in hindsight, maybe it doesn't sting as bad, but that was just a cool, like all-time cool college football play. So shout out to that. I forget what year that was.
Was that 2014?
I think that was like 2010.
2010.
It was definitely a night game.
Yeah, it was not. It wasn't in. Yeah, it wasn't.
Oh no, it wasn't in Norman.
Yeah, 1982 as we're back. It's 2010.
I feel like there must have been some kind of interception in 2014. I'm thinking about.
That was OSU almost had an interception and they called it dead on Blake Bell's final drive. That's what it was.
Oh, well, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, that's one of the things that they get mad about for that game. But yeah, 2010, very great game with Landry. One of Landry's best. Him and James Hanna going back and forth. And then 2011, because of realignment, 2 Bedlams back-to-back in Stillwater.
That was the stupidest thing. Absolute stupidest.
Totally
you can avoid that. That was. I remember how angry and I mean, like we said earlier, you get double Stillwater. We're a little bit older. Yeah, I feel like that would have been totally pumped. Like if they're in college, like, oh yeah, we can go to Stillwater 2 years in a row. Let's do it. But at the time, I was like, no. Why would we like this? It was just so stupid. It could have been avoided, especially for a rivalry game. Like, come on, Big 12.
It was garbage. But yeah. And we ran into a buzzsaw. Oklahoma State, fresh off losing to Iowa State, losing their national title run, completely takes it out of the Sooners, wins a Big 12 championship. Obliteration. Not a good night to be an OU fan. And probably one of the best nights in Oklahoma State history, winning the Big 12 title on their home turf. Yada, yada, yada.
Brandon Whedon just absolutely rocked our world.
He was peak OSU. It was their best team ever by far. OU at that point was kind of decimated. Ryan Broyles was out for the season. Wouldn't have made a difference. Wouldn't have made a difference if it was in Norman, to be frank. But at least they couldn't have rushed the field, I guess.
Yeah, Justin Blackman and Brandon Whedon. People don't talk about him. Like that was just like it's such a dynamic duo. Like honestly, it's such a shame for what happened in Justin Blackman in his career in the NFL. But in college, he was an absolute dog. That dude was near unstoppable. And in that game, he didn't have like the numbers to show it, but like you'd see it all the time back then. Like him and Brandon Whedon. Like it's weird saying it now in today's hindsight, but man, that was a powerful, powerful college football duo.
I mean, absolutely, just dynamic as hell. While we're kind of talking on this, we talked about 12 a bit, talked about 13. Let's talk about our freshman year, Bedlam. And here's my take. While y'all think it's kind of similar, if we're talking about overrated things, the pain from the Tyreek Hill kick 6, not that bad. Not that bad at all. OU was dead in the water. We had Cody Thompson running the show. It was a horrible, horrible team. OSU wasn't good either, but at that point, my soul was gone. I was a dead man. I had been beaten and bludgeoned emotionally by that OU team, and it was just the little poop icing on the poop cake. It was just bad, man. So
how is that overrated? We were winning. We were up with a touchdown with 45 seconds left in the game, and Tyreek Hill returned it 92 yards after Bob Stoops decided to kick it again. How is that overrated?
Because it didn't
touchdown. Still, like in a rivalry game, I feel like that is like a big deal. Like any kind of last second score under a minute, you kind of say like, oh yeah, we were dead in the water.
Too.
Yes, we were dead in the water. We were up. I understand that second half was miserable. Like we only scored once the whole second half, but like I felt like that was a dagger, and that's something I still remember. And I know Ty has his thoughts on that too.
Yeah, I had a great time at the game. I left, and I didn't actually see it.
I left too, and I
left. We were winning, and then the next morning I found out we lost, but I had a good time. So like, I mean, I don't know.
I watched the damn game from Fuzzies. I was sitting there, and I left with the group, and I didn't want to leave, but everyone in the group did. And whenever you're a freshman in college, you want to be social and you want to be a part of the pack. So I said, you know what, screw it. And I watched the game from Fuzzies, and I was pissed. I was speechless, and I didn't want to talk to anybody. I was so angry.
Yeah, it was I remember hearing about the fuzzies thing. That's funny. That brings me. I stayed the whole way, and it was a sad, cold, wet walk to the dorms. Man, that was bad. That was a bad time.
No, I think. Yeah, we went to the cots after, but yeah,
we definitely went to the cots and had a good time. Like we made up for it because there was definitely some merrymaking afterwards. It was. Oh wait, no, I remember this night. Yeah, that was a good night. That was a really good.
That was when people were jumping off the roof that night.
Yeah,
and
that's why
and stuff. Yeah,
that's why I remember that night.
That was not me. I was not.
He said it's not that bad because you had a good time after.
Because I had a great time. That was a really good night afterwards. Yeah, wait. That's why I don't hate that game that much. We'll cut it off there.
Here's I want to say this about Tyreek Hill though in Oklahoma State. Tyreek Hill, one of the most electric top three. Okay, I'm going to talk football here. I'm going to talk football. Talking football. Talking strictly football.
Just talking football.
He is top 3, NFL wide receiver in my opinion right now, and he is one of the most special guys in all of sports in my opinion. The thing is, like, I don't have too much, if at all, memories of Tyreek Hill, being a problem for us. Obviously, he had his place, but like, I don't think like I quiver at the thought, of the same kind of conversation that we had with Justin Blackman when we were talking earlier. Tyreek Hill, all I know is that that punt return touchdown for us. Other than that, really don't have any core memories of him versus OU.
He's very similar. I agree, and it's very similar. And this is a funny comparison because the Chiefs, but I think of Mahomes the same way. Like he was just not. Obviously, we had that super shootout games with him, but I don't ever remember there being a whole lot of, at least within OU fandom, people being really that scared of Patrick Mahomes or thinking, not trying to diminish him, but I don't remember anyone ever really thinking that he was a big significant threat at all. Obviously, the Tech squad as a whole, but I think there was more chatter around Kingsbury than there was Mahomes every time we faced him.
Hey, Bobby, let me hop in real quick here. Let's play a little bit of game of The Price is Right, where y'all are up. I see Bobby and Ty are up here. They just got to the podiums of The Price is Right. So I'm giving you this wonderful exhibit, and it is Tyreek Hill's reception yards in the 2014 Bedlam game. And I need first bid. Bobby, what do you got?
Reception yards? I'm going to go with yards. I'm going to go with 30.
Okay, 30. Ty, what do you got?
12.
And Ty is our winner because Bobby went over. He had a total of 22 receiving yards that game.
Yeah, of course.
22.
Yeah, I guess 12 is.
That was off 6 catches, too.
Oklahoma State having Tyreek Hill, not knowing how to use him.
So, I mean, like, yes, he was electric. Obviously, the punt return was a big deal. But it's like that game, it was all that punt return. It's not like he cooked us like
why
the other Oklahoma State wide receivers have done past.
Do you have his stats pulled up, or do you have the whole team's stats pulled up?
Let's pull up his season stats. I'm going to pull them up. Tyreek Hill,
because he was a
here's the thing. I think, right? Here's the thing. Sometimes in college, it's better to be the number 2 receiver because they cover the number 1 receiver. I will make this.
When you're a slot guy, that's different.
Number 2 receiver thing work in any scenario. It's a justifiable take.
Blake mentioned that same take in Bye Bye TCU. Actually, that
did he? Well, because I've been saying it for years now. For years, I've been saying that.
He listed the villain of OU TCU on the TCU side being TCU's second option wide receiver, because every year they just destroyed us. Deuce Vaughn. That's so funny.
All right, I've got a question for y'all again about Tyreek Hill and his stats. How many touchdowns do you think he had through the air catching throughout that season of 2014?
5.
Ty?
7.
That's both of y'all went over. He had 1.
Oh my god! How does that happen?
That's crazy.
Because were they still Chelf at that point? I think that was Chelf's last year.
You know what the difference is in college it's not scripted like in the NFL. So you can. Next, we're going to look at John Cena's fighting stats, and figure out why he's so much better at WWE than he was. And
I'm pretty sure Mason Rudolph was your quarterback in 2014.
Jeez, wow, that's woof, Gundy, because that was a pretty bad year for OSU too. Like they were not great. I remember them being that being a pretty poor Oklahoma State team. Wow, jeez. Let's move on to the good times. We haven't talked about 2015, the last kind of bit of that championship November run. Great time. Baker comes back, absolutely smashes Oklahoma State in Stillwater. It's a proxy Big 12 championship. It was over from the get-go. You had that awesome Joe Mixon touchdown. You had, it was just such a great game. Absolute blowout, top to back. Wonderful, wonderful times in Stillwater right there. And there's 16, that's a Big 12 championship again. Last one before they go to, championship games, the P. Ryan knee. Everyone knows that. Always a good time. 17, we talked about that quite a bit. 18, the Kyler Murray year. That year sucked. That was the corn dog season. A man, Jamison, you and I in our first podcasting season, a man we mercilessly mocked goes in and just tears us up. We hang on for dear life against a very bad OSU team in Norman. Not good. Oh, that 18 team was so freaking frustrating because you have moments like Army, you have moments like OSU, you have moments like Kansas, but like there was bits of magic in there. It was the worst.
Yeah, I'll give it to Corn Dog. Obviously, it turns out to be it looks really well when you have Tylan Wallace as your wide receiver. But man, that was a game full of hurt, and that failed 2-point conversion with about a minute left after their touchdown was the biggest sigh of relief. Like, because this game was just back and forth. We couldn't really get away from it. And it was like, whoever, I hate it when announcers say that. Looks like one of those games, whoever has the ball last is probably going to win the game. But legitimately, that's what it was.
That's how most games end. Like, that's how close games end. Duh.
And, oh man, we've had a couple games like that in OU history recently, but stopping a 2-point conversion, for the win is such yes, there's celebration, but it's more just and you just relax back into your seat.
That's the best. And then Ty, let's talk about 19. Jalen Hurts goes in. This is a very pedestrian, just workman-like OU win. Oklahoma State, I think they were kind of all right, but OU goes in just in another kind of frustrating, weird back and forth year, goes in, just beats them soundly. It was that was an excellent one.
Yeah, that was like you said, sort of workman-like. It was just a fundamental win. It wasn't, it wasn't a flashy or there wasn't even any sort of plucky Sooner luck or anything like that. It was just sort of, it felt very, and I've done my bits before, but I do kind of think about the NFL this way, but it felt very just like NFL game like to me. Like it was just super sound fundamentally, which is obviously, fun and enjoyable, I guess, if you want to see sort of not necessarily perfect football, but it just didn't feel like flashy, exciting. It didn't feel like anything could happen like you get in college games sometimes. It was a great game. It was super, super fun atmosphere. But yeah, if you're talking about, exciting games that are worth like going and rewatching, I could never see myself sitting down and rewatching even highlights from this one, let alone the full game.
Very forgettable.
Yeah. 1982 brings it up. I forget Hurts caught a touchdown, a Philly special, weirdly enough. So kind of funny, how that ended up. Great game there. 2020, the COVID year, Oklahoma State and OU both highly ranked. This is a college game day game, a rare one in Norman. Last time we had it, actually. But not really, I don't know. Doesn't count because it was COVID. OU goes in, just pounds Oklahoma State. That was a great one. Great one for sure.
Yeah, I remember absolutely toasting Spencer Sanders after that. Like saying oh, Spencer Sanders, everyone thinks he didn't even throw for over 100 passing yards that game. The famous Spencer Sanders moon ball, if you all don't know what that is, essentially I feel like Spencer Sanders passing game all is just throwing it as high as he can up into the air and hoping for a pass interference. That was a bad run.
Jamison briefly went underwater there, but yeah, the Sanders moon ball, definitely a thing. Definitely a thing. That was probably one of Radler's best games, I will say.
It was. He needed that game too. I feel like that was a good game for him.
Yeah, and the OU defense is that was just a pretty good. That was a good OU game all around.
That felt good. I vividly remember like that was just like a thank goodness moment that we had a performance like that.
Yeah, Ty, what do you remember that one?
Of 2020?
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of just if I think about it now, I just think Rattler, which I would like to say, how people like have something and it's not as nice as things they've had before and they're not grateful for it. What I'm trying to say is Rattler is indescribably better than who we currently have at quarterback, and I wish we still had him because, I think we would have at least had a winning record last year if we had him. This is not a bit. He's not good, but he's anything is better than what a Blake Bell full time at least could run the ball. So.
Oh God. Okay. No. That's where we skip. Blake Bell was not good.
You will not slander Blake Bell on a Bedlam.
I loved the Bell Moser, but he's not. Dylan Gabriel is a better quarterback.
This is a Bedlam focused podcast, and Blake Bell. If you only ever look at Bedlam, you're like, oh, this guy probably won a Heisman at Oklahoma.
We'll get to Blake Bell in a bit. We'll talk about him quite a bit. Just wrapping through this 2021.
Can I do one thing real quick, Bobby? Because I just saw something really funny as I was kind of like searching and doing some more research on that 2020 game. I typed in 2020 Bedlam. You know how you get on Google and it says like people who ask, and it gives you like these like selected little quick things that you can click and find your answers that way. It'll be like other questions along that subject line. So the first one's like, who won Bedlam football in 2020? So you can obviously see that. The next one is, why was Bedlam canceled? And I said, oh my goodness, what does Google have to say about this? You click on the why was Bedlam canceled, and it says Oklahoma State was the program that decided to pull the plug on the series. Playing Oklahoma presents logistical issues under our current scheduling structure, said Oklahoma State AD.
Yeah.
Wow, Google said it. All right, Gundy, you got to respond. I'm pretty sure Google's pretty darn smart.
I Googled it, Gundy. You lost. You lost to Google. Everything on the Google machine is true. But anyways, let's move on. 2021, last loss to Oklahoma State. This is the infamous game. OU starts out hot. Everything goes great in a time where everything was going wrong for Oklahoma. We didn't know yet, but Caleb Williams just couldn't get it done. I thought we were going to win. I thought we were going to win that damn game at the end. I really genuinely did. What about you, Ty?
The 2021 game?
Yeah, in Stillwater.
I don't remember.
That's fair. Jamison,
I remember someone. It may not have been within our group text. I remember someone at one point. It's absolutely hilarious in hindsight. I remember someone at some point saying, "At least we know that we're not losing our coach to LSU after that game,"
that feels like a me thing.
Amazing. It may have been. I feel like if I remember that it was you, I would definitely say that. Or if there was even I don't remember who said it, but someone. It wasn't me. I'm not trying to say like, oh, I don't recall who said this, but yeah, that was a time. I think it was a winnable game by us, but I don't know. I could tell that the vibe was off the whole time. Like it was not there. You could tell that something pretty major was off just with everything when it came to OU.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like people, whenever we talk about this game, it's always like, oh, we were down big and we had to scrap our way. I feel like people kind of mix their thoughts of what this game was with the Texas game and the Caleb Williams thing, because there's these kind of similar things. But that third quarter, we came out of halftime, tie game, and got that safety early in the third quarter. And I remember then I was like, oh goodness, like we can squeeze this out. You know, we play a sloppy first half, but that safety, anytime something like a safety happens or like any kind of block, like special teams or kind of turnover, like similar instances like that, that is huge for momentum. Very, very big. And ended up, winning the quarter 9-0 on that. But that fourth quarter, we didn't score. We didn't score a single time in that fourth quarter. It was an anemic time. And, Jalen Warren and Spencer Sanders ran over us. And the one thing, Bobby, that obviously I will always remember from this game is Caleb Williams' run on that final drive where he did his famous plant your right foot on the sideline, cut to the middle of the field. We both looked at each other during that and said, oh my God, he's going to take this all the way. Because we had seen that play over and over where he takes it all the way. One more defender, that could have been the story, and we could have been talking about a completely different reality with us.
It is so intriguing because I think if he housed it, you play OSU in the Big 12 championship the next week, and one of the things happens. Either Lincoln Riley leaves anyways, and he leaves a team that is a win away from a potential playoff spot, and that would be just insane. So he probably can't do that. So he would stay just a little longer and then leave to USC probably. But like, if OU somehow beat Oklahoma State there and made the playoff, what happens?
I don't know. And the thing is, like, everyone, like, there's all this kind of like narrative that, you know, he already had his foot out the door, and obviously people play conspiracy with that. Can we truly know that? You know, he said, she said kind of thing. But, you know, if Caleb Williams scores that touchdown, you're not telling me that they're not going to go out and try in the Big 12 championship and win themselves a ring. I don't care if Lincoln Riley thinks he's already leaving. For your legacy, you go out and you play big in big time championship games.
No, absolutely. I think it would be very intriguing to see, to say the least. But, you know, we got reality, and I kind of think we're better off long term doing a full reset, because things weren't going to work out under Lincoln. I don't know if things are going to work out under Brent, but they definitely were working under Lincoln, so it's time to reset. So I think it ended up working fine. Very long drive home, very tough stuff. Long drive home for Lincoln and Caleb Williams, maybe. Who knows? You know, just, you know, rumors here. But brutal time that next morning, waking up from a nap and then having to go right into a podcast about how Lincoln left. And I gotta say, and I'm just this is just being selfish. That might have been one of the best things for our podcast ever. Is the reaction from Lincoln Riley. The numbers were killer. That's what sprung this channel up a bit. I'm sad it happened. It sucked, but also the one silver lining for us greedily was it was great for the numbies.
I remember I let you all do it, and I was studying for a test during it. Mm-hmm.
Me and Ty on the 5,000 person stream. Great times. It was good time. Enough about us and our numbies. Let's move on to 2022. The 28-0 run last year. Incredible stuff.
Yeah.
Nothing else to say. We scored four straight touchdowns. Didn't do anything else the rest of the way. Genuinely hilarious that we lost 4 out of 5. And the one game we won was to a ranked Oklahoma State team. You hate to see it. You hate to see it, folks. You hate to see it.
Dude, Spencer Sanders legitimately looked like he was in like quicksand and mud that whole game.
So bad. Spencer Sanders.
I mean, I was just going to say, that's the stereotypical Bedlam story. For it's only pain for Oklahoma State. Like, they have those little wins, but it's almost like Wile E. Coyote-esque, where it does not matter what the odds are. Oklahoma State's just going to lose. It's like a cheesy movie or something. You almost always know, like, Oklahoma State can come in super highly ranked. We're just abysmal. We're getting stomped on by everyone in the Big 12. And then Oklahoma State's like, all right, like, at least we have this. At least we can have this. And then it just still doesn't work out. Like, it's working for everyone else. And then they cannot figure it out. It's just, I mean, that's the story of Bedlam.
Yeah, it's like they're seeing everybody run through the tunnel, and then they try to run through, and it's actually just a rock.
It's painted on. It's painted on a rock. Yeah.
Exactly. Another great example of that shutout. They were ranked like 12th, going for a Big 12, not a Big 12 championship because Texas was great, but they're going for a BCS bid and got shut out, which is just hilarious. So another case of that. Well, we've run down all the way through to the end. And look, we got one more left. This is not the end of Bedlam. It's going to be in Stillwater, not on Thanksgiving weekend. But I'm certainly excited to see how it plays out. One last trip to Bedlam will be great. Got to ask, guys, biggest who would you say would be the biggest hero in OU in Bedlam history on the OU side?
I feel like
Can I
such
go
a
first?
lame answer. Yeah, okay, you go for it, Ty.
Mike Gundy. Look at the stats.
Yes.
Look at the stats. You can't tell me Mike Gundy isn't an OU sleeper agent. There's no way. Just statistically, it's impossible for him to have lost that much as a player and a coach. He's got to be a plant.
He just
It's
really
an inside job. I've heard
really
his brother was associated with the OU program. Why is no one investigating the Gundy family? I need to see their laptops. Where's Mike Gundy's laptop? Is all I'm saying. Where's that? Nobody's answering. Nobody. The OSBI unable to present us with the contents of Mike Gundy's laptop. I just think it's kind of.
I don't want to know what's in that laptop. I'm going to be straight up honest.
Gundy's looking at laptops and tablets usually doesn't turn out very well though. So like,
oh goodness, I didn't know there was layers to that joke. We know what's on one of them.
We know it's on Drake Stoops, unfortunately. But anyways,
I love how people took that just very obviously a joking reply and reported it as real. It was Drake Stoops' laptop.
So bad. Anyways, Jamison, best hero in Bedlam history.
And I would say probably Blake Bell would probably be my answer there. It's easy to go Baker Mayfield, obviously.
Bobby, you're not going to cut him off and talk about how Blake Bell is trash?
Sorry.
It's really just dependent of the one play, the pass Jalen in the corner of the end zone and coming through after going through two different quarterbacks. That like Baker Mayfield, he was playing well for the whole season. He came in and did what he was supposed to do. Blake Bell came in. That's what heroes do. They come in whenever you least expect it.
Blake Bell also came in that overtime game. He scored the touchdown
True.
As regulation was running out, got it in. So that was good stuff.
Yeah, he has a couple.
Yeah. Blake Bell's up there. Baker Mayfield goes undefeated. Loved that out of him. Adrian Peterson also just absolutely killer. He went undefeated in Bedlams as well, 3-0 or 2-0. He didn't play in 2006 because he was hurt. But still, yeah. Sam Bradford also up there. There are too many heroes. Kyler was good, kinda. He had his 1 year. Too many heroes to count. It's all good stuff. Villains. I'm just gonna say it's the Woods family. Rashawn Woods, yes. Donovan Woods, all the Woods family is the Oklahoma State version of the Lockets, but they only exist to torture OU.
Jelani Woods still is he part of that family too? I'm assuming.
No idea. How do you become a part of a family anymore?
Yes, I'm just obviously I'm just assuming just because, but
I see what you mean. Is he related to the Woods? I don't know. But the Woods family, just absolute thorns at OU side for sure. Unlike the Gundy family, who have only been beneficial to OU. I thought that's the answer. I think. I don't tie any
Brandon Whedon.
Brandon Whedon. Don't make fun of the elderly.
Whedon still only won one time.
Brandon Whedon.
But that's all it takes.
OSU
that
hero.
game was just too much.
Yeah.
And again,
OSU hero 12 years ago, currently 58 years old.
Yeah.
Brandon Whedon got a leaked in.
Bob Stoops is a villain, but not really.
How is Bob Stoops a villain? Am I missing a...
He won too many games to be a villain. He tripped up. Les Miles, he's a villain.
Oh yeah, Les Miles has got to be the ultimate. I will say we've been saying this for many years. People have only caught on to hating Les Miles. We've been there. We knew something was up.
Les Miles is just like
roll the tapes back, except for that time for 6 months that I didn't know that he had been fired.
You thought he was still in Kansas.
You guys thought I was doing a bit, and I legitimately thought that he was still a coach at Kansas. That was a good one.
Incredible.
I'm looking into Brandon Whedon's LinkedIn right now, and this dude is a territory manager for a medical equipment sales company. That dude has got a lot of money from that. I guarantee he's rolling absolutely in it. His life's pretty good right now. People can talk about his NFL career. So he got the NFL first round money. He's making more than he would have done as a backup quarterback in the NFL now.
Good for Brandon Whedon. Wow. Nice move. What else is there? We already talked about all the games. No need to talk about best worst. So
will you miss them?
Oh, here before we jump into that, because I think that's a good closing point. I do have something that's in the same vein. So there might be an answer to this. I don't know the answer to this. Is there another school that has an in-state Power 5 rival that they just straight up don't play? Because I can't. Well, that's at the same sort of. I'm not saying Oklahoma State's at the same tier, but like you would say, like, oh, LSU and like La Tech or something like ULM.
Yeah, that doesn't count.
No, that doesn't count. Those aren't like rivalries. I cannot think of another. Let's say two nationally relevant Power 5.
Yeah, that's
schools,
what I was thinking of.
But they will be. Well, yeah, so that's kind of asterisks. Yeah, because that was just a temporary lapse. But
so now, like Texas Tech.
Do you get what I'm asking though? Is like another nationally relevant Power 5 in-state legitimate rival that they just don't play.
Miami and Florida.
Yeah,
that's not a regular series.
But that has never been a regular. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was even like banned by the government for a while because the game got too intense. That might just be total.
That sounds so wildly.
Florida taking away our freedom.
Obviously not true. That sounds like.
I need to Google that. Florida Miami. Like I swear to God, I read this.
Meme level misinformation that Bobby's falling for here.
Florida Miami banned
we
football
can't take
series.
Our freedom.
Why?
They're trying to take our football game.
It doesn't make any sense, Bobby.
I swear to God, I read this. Yeah.
I don't doubt that you read that. You believing it is. Yeah,
I almost said I'm reading it on Wikipedia to verify, but also Wikipedia is a bad place to do it because Ty regularly spreads
I have never once spread misinformation on Wikipedia.
Never.
I am a lifetime banned because those darn Missouri fans, and then also maybe the Texas State thing
because of their mascot's connection to Boko Haram.
Hey, I didn't say Wikipedia said that, not me.
Jesus.
So
okay, all right. Let's wrap this up with a nice little bow, talking about obviously all three of us are going to miss Oklahoma State, and I know Bobby's going to have a very heartfelt message. And really, the moral of the story is it sucks that we're going to have to go out on this negative note. I understand it's a rivalry. I understand we have animosity between the two of us. But I just hate that it has to end this year. You know, us moving to the SEC and we have this sour note between us. And I understand, you know, things that really mean a lot to you and things that have like a lot to it. The endings aren't usually a clean break. They're going to be sloppy. You know, these long-time relationships. If you break up your long-time relationship, it's usually not going to be a good breakup. It's always going to be a little bit sloppy. And it's just such a bummer that, you know, we have to talk about this Mike Gundy at Big 12 Media Day, and there's drama, and it's, you know, we're going to go to Oklahoma State, you know, for Bedlam this year. If we end up losing, we're going to hear SEC chants. I just want it, you know, to have like one day where we can remember like the positives, like it was a super fun time playing your in-state rival, and it's something that I really hope that one day down the line, it's not going to be recent. Some way we can mend those things and have at least a couple of games, like a series, you know, where we could at least play them.
Ty, I'll let you go.
Yeah, I don't want to – I can't say anything on the future, you know, realistically. I don't think Oklahoma State's ever going to go to the SEC. I think they deserve to be in the SEC more than like bum Missouri, for example, or Arkansas. Which is just laundered. It's just a Kansas school that they've thrown some red on. But yeah, no, I think college football is changing so rapidly currently in the conferences, the conference alignments, the schedules. I don't think it's unrealistic to say even 3 years down the road, just the way that the entire NCAA schedules their seasons could be drastically different from the way it is now. And there could be a possibility of that becoming a regular thing, regardless of the conference. That I don't think 3 years from now they're going to be outside of the Big 12, and we're not going to be outside of the SEC. But I think that there's a possibility that in a few years we will be hearing about at least a scheduling of a fairly regular thing. between the schools, especially with the way that the SEC is looking at out-of-conference opponents. And I think it benefits Oklahoma State to play Oklahoma in the future as well, because it's almost a house money situation. It's one of those low expectations situations, if you ask me. Like if they cash out from the table now, basically, and refuse to play us ever again, they're cashing out at a loss. And I'm not saying, oh, they should keep playing us like they'll, all gamblers quit right before they win big. But you're expected to lose, and I'm not trying to make a joke, but like if you're just expected to lose, then if it's an out-of-conference opponent or something like that, anytime you win, it's just 10 times better. So I think, I don't know. I don't necessarily think of Oklahoma State as fondly as a rival as maybe you guys. We've had these discussions before. Like I think a lot of it is formed with just like, kids talking crap to each other growing up. I personally, kind of alluded to this before, but like, I think OSU playing like LSU, I had more growing up in a lot of SEC states and stuff. I had a lot of more just like justifying like the 2013 OU versus Bama Sugar Bowl was just absolutely tremendous for me as an OU fan out there in Mississippi. But yeah, I just don't think of Oklahoma State the same way. I have this super, super fond memories of going to Stillwater, but they've never been necessarily a rival in my mind. And I know I've played that up for the bits. And I think I recognize that it's a much more significant loss historically and sort of to the traditions of college football than not being able to play K-State or Kansas or whoever else anymore. But I don't feel it, I guess, to the same extent that maybe others do, definitely that Oklahoma State fans do. But I think at the end of the day, Oklahoma State's playing this whole we don't have room on our schedule or whatever thing. And they were the ones that were really bitter about this loss. So, they can put their foot down and say, I didn't get broken up with, I broke up with them. But we all know, what happens. We broke up with them. We knew what we were doing, and now they've decided to block our number, basically. But we weren't calling them anyways. So right. It's kind of that situation. But I think there's great potential in the future for us to play, not necessarily scheduling home and homes, because I think those are, rarer, and I don't think it makes sense for Oklahoma necessarily to go after a home and home with Oklahoma State when those are such finite slots. But I think there's potential for something semi-regular to pop up, because you never know. And the committees are getting more and more subjective with postseason stuff, especially as the postseason expands. That's going to be such a juicy selling point, potentially. Obviously, we want to match up, big brand to big brand. Let's have Oklahoma play, USC or Ohio State or something like that. Notre Dame maybe in the offseason. But that is a juicy selling point that bowl committees and everyone else are going to look at 5-10 years in the future and say, oh, well, if we can kind of justify this matchup, that would get a lot of TV draws.
Yeah. And I'll say this, and this is my proper goodbye to Oklahoma State. Am I going to miss it? A bit. But I'm not going to miss it as much as any Oklahoma State person on here, any one of you out here. I'm not going to miss it nearly as much as you guys are. And I know you're not going to you're not going to miss taking the loss. But this rivalry is so much to you. It is the equivalent of taking away your homecoming. It is the equivalent of taking away Eskimo Joe's. It is the equivalent of taking away Original Hideaway and replacing it with a normal one.
Orange. We're taking orange from them.
It's like taking orange.
You put a Pizza Hut in spot of the Hideaway.
It's like taking the America's Brightest Orange and toning it down. It's taking a essential part of Oklahoma State away. It does not take an essential part of Oklahoma State away. Flashback to the start of this podcast. We were talking about games in Stillwater, why they mean so much. It's because of you. It's because of how you feel about it. It's because of the traditions, the emotions, the hope, the feeling that this might be the time we finally get them. That constant chase you want. You want to be better than Oklahoma. That is everything to you. You want to be better than OU. Every advantage you have on OU all the time, you tout it because you want to be over OU all the time. And when you lose that, you're gonna have to look in the mirror, figure out what Oklahoma State is. And one of two things is going to happen. Either you invent yourself, become something special, become your own brand, as Mike Gundy said, and grow into Oklahoma State and build upon that. But you will always have that piece of Bedlam missing. You can't replace that with UCF. You can't replace that with Cincy. You can't replace that with any of these teams who are available. And there's going to come a day when you realize that. You got to bring it back. Oklahoma will be here for you. We're ready. That's fine. But we don't need it like Oklahoma State needs it. It's not going to feel like a missing limb like it's going to feel like in Oklahoma State. And it's sad that they have to deal with it, but it doesn't make sense to hold us back. The Oklahoma made the absolute right move to move to the SEC. They improved themselves. They improved their positioning in the future. That is obvious. There's no way in hell we were going to that Bedlam was going to stop that, because at the end of the day, Bedlam just means more at Oklahoma State. It just does. And they can be mad now. I get it. It's frustrating. It makes you question your place in the world of college sports after all the investment they've done. I understand it. I would be upset too that it puts it in jeopardy. But you're gonna come around and realize you need that as a part of your school. You need it more than Oklahoma needs it. So that's my thoughts on it.
Well said, Bobby.
Yeah, and OSU should do it. I think it's good for the state just to have that rivalry, but more than anything, it's good for Oklahoma State. It gives them something to strive for. Or maybe it's bad for Oklahoma State and they need to be free. But either way, they're gonna figure out one or the other.
Yeah, they were in a relationship they probably need, but they want to be single for a bit to explore. They might come crawling back.
They need to flirt with Tulsa a bit, the real rivalry they have. And they'll play the other sports, but also it's just they need that. So that's my take on it. I'll miss them a little bit, but I'm excited for the future.
You know what?
What?
Women's rowing is remaining in the Big 12, where Bama is also, I will point out. So, and Tennessee. So the Big 12 lives on, I will say. Big 12 secret super conference in women's rowing. Oklahoma State, I don't know if they even lunch. I don't know if they field a team in that, but if Oklahoma State does, then that's where we can settle the score. And in my closing, I have a very quick closing statement addressed specifically to Oklahoma State fans. And I would just like to remind you that regardless of what happens, the best damn pizza at Hideaway is named after an OU player.
And you can't get it in Stillwater because it's a different Hideaway. I got to say, better restaurant, Hideaway or Eskimo Joe's?
In terms of the actual food,
both the Stillwater. Both Stillwater.
I mean, there's more that goes into a restaurant than the food.
The cheese fries. Mm-hmm. The cheese fries are a better item, but even the people at Oklahoma State don't eat them. That's a thing that nobody goes to really. If you go there, it's touristy. I think they
go there. I want to have my good meal at Eskimo Joe's. No, they're going to give you your, obviously it's going to be an okay meal, but it's not like it's wow.
I will say this about OSU, Jamison, and something I think you would appreciate. You appreciate. They love hot dogs. They have two. Mm-hmm. They have two really big hot dog stands. On their thing. You got the Curdy Shack and then the Coney Island. All in one line. You can have multiple dogs per going out. And I will say this. I'll give Oklahoma State this. The strip is better than Campus Corner by far. That's a proper call.
Easy. We know that game day environment at OSU is so much better than game day environment at OU.
I'll give them that. So I was a little harsh on them earlier, but I had to throw them a little treats. They have a great college town.
Game day, bar atmosphere alone, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know. But
I will disagree, but let's go ahead. We've gone on for a long time here.
Yep. Well, they deserved it. So, all right. Well, that is the end of our series. Bye-bye, Big 12. Goodbye, Oklahoma State. Obviously, don't need to say bye to the new teams because screw them. And Texas is coming with us, so they don't get a version of this. But it's been fun going back down memory lane at the conference. We have dominated for decades. And whoever steps up next, good luck to you. So, Jamison, what do we got coming up next, buddy? What do we got going? What time is it? What time is it?
I'm doing my own research into Mike Gundy's laptop. I will figure out whose side he's on.
Other than uncovering the contents of Mike Gundy's laptop, yes. Jamison, what do we got coming up?
Let's get into some conference previews here. It's crazy to say that we're starting to line that up. And we'll get our good old friend of the pod, Boatin' Blake, in, and he has such good insight of all of these kind of things. We'll go through the conferences, and then we'll slowly but surely get to OU and the Big 12 and start to break down OU. Before we know it, it'll be August, and September will be right around the corner.
Yep, we're almost there. Football season is just right there. Week 0, it's coming. It's coming quick. So looking forward to diving into conferences with y'all too, and old Boatin' Blake here in a bit. And thank y'all so much for following us this whole series. This has been an absolute blast. A great way to rip through some of these dull months of the off season. And just a true blast. So Jamison, I know it's late for you. Ty, I know it's late. Well, not actually that late for you.
It's
because you're in Arizona.
7:51, but it's still I think 112 outside.
All right. Quick question. Favorite Bye Bye Big 12 episode each of y'all did. Go.
I don't know. It put me on the dang spot now. I don't know which one was my favorite.
You could just say this.
No. I don't know. Don't put me on the spot. How dare you? Bad podcast host.
Well,
yeah, a little inside baseball. I know I did. I think Jamison did as well. We both moved, I think, within a couple of days of each other. And we recorded some before the big moves that were maybe released after. So I don't even remember which ones I did. So I'll say
I liked my Kansas episode too.
Kansas was fun. What
did you like? Sorry, I interrupted you, Ty.
My favorite Bye Bye Big 12 memory was when we were allocating them out in the group text, and Jamison just assumed that I wanted to talk about Iowa State because I always do bits on them. And then he discovered that I just legitimately don't like Iowa State and would rather just never talk about them again than even do bits about them. So
that's true.
That's why I did not participate in the Iowa State one, because I just literally don't like them.
Yeah.
So that's my favorite memory, is not having to talk about Iowa State anymore.
There you go. K-State was fun. K-State's gotten a good response. So shout out to K-State. They always had
good fan interaction with us.
I knew I liked them for a reason. So, all right, this pod has gone on way too long. Jamison and Ty, thank you so much for joining me, both tonight and throughout this 8-week long period or some odd. All right, conference previews up next, folks. We're getting very close to football. See you next time, and Boomer Sooner, everybody.